Hello, my name is Luis Delfin Attawalpa Saul Felber. I am a artist and composer, and I'm living currently in North London.
I'm Emily Nam. We are art people.
Don't know what it's going to be like, but you're kind of creating this vision just came to me. It's like when you're playing music and it's intimate, right? You can feel the audience. You're sort of creating a psychedelic pillow or mattress that people can sort of, that thing when you're like the trust thing, when you're like fall back and you catch, it's like something like that, but you're creating it for just them, to rest this, to like relax their spine and unquench their shoulders and just like be. It's like, it's a really personal kind of intimate thing.
I'm joining you today in conversation with Luis Delfin Attawalpa Saul Felber, who is a multi-instrumentalist and composer based in London. From his participation with Young Turks and multiple bands and music groups, Luis formed Attawalpa as his namesake, after the 16th century Incan ruler. His music continues to evolve into the spacious and vulnerable dimensions of the human psyche, immersing us in a pillow of melodies that evoke potential dreamings of our future. Luis's interactions with sound have led him to working on visual scores for film and television, including motion pictures, Catherine Called Birdy, and Sharpstick. Luis has recently collaborated with American artist Laurie Simmons, composing the sound score for Laurie's upcoming installation, Autofiction, to be shown in Dallas-Fort Worth. Well, it's great to meet you, Luis. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I thought we would start off by talking about Attawalpa and the origins of that name and how it's become a very large part of your life in presenting the medium for presenting your sound.
Atahualpa. It's my name, but I didn't find it for a very long time. It's been on my passport my whole life. My mother named me Luis Delfin Atahualpa Saul Felber after the last Inca king before the Spanish invaded about 500 years ago. So I always thought, that's a crazy name. Growing up in England, I'm going to hide that from most people because, kids are mean. But then when I got into my late 20s, early 30s, really, let's be honest here, I stopped drinking and taking drugs and sort of started trying to take myself a bit more seriously and be kinder to myself. And I had these songs. I had a vision of since I was 17, I've always wanted to write music and perform music. That was always the objective. That was always the thing that made me feel most present. And I think it took being quite destructive to myself to sort of realize that my name is like the most powerful thing I can call my band or my artistic output at that time. And it also gave me a chance to sort of embrace my Peruvian heritage, which, I grew up a bit in Peru. I used to go there once a year. My early memories of like socializing and talking to people who were my immediate nuclear family were like my cousins, and I've got quite a big family over there. So like I wanted to sort of dig back into that. I've lived in England most of my life, all my adult life. So it just all made sense, and it was one of those things that's just sitting there in front of you, and it takes a big shift in self to sort of be like, duh, that's it. And yeah, I think the name brings me a lot of power and a lot of like solace, and it sort of reminds me who I am and what I'm doing. I had so many names before that, which I'm I don't even remember half of them, but one was a Tom Waits album, and yeah, one was everything was just trying too hard. It's hard to come up with names. Um, but especially a name that gives you like a full circle feeling. And to me, Atahualpa gives me that sort of, you know, I think one of the best names ever is Nirvana, and that's straight away you like, you know what it is, you feel it, and then you hear the music, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it epitomizes
Yeah, it's like a tidal
the
wave
essence
of essence. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you have had a few other projects you've been involved in over time, and
Yeah,
working
countless.
with different people. And so do you
Yeah,
feel
since I've been doing this since I was 17, I'm 38 now, so I've been doing this for like way over half my life. Yeah.
do you feel, and just going off what you said, so you started up at Awalpa around 2020, did it feel like this
2018, I put out my
2018?
first EP,
Okay.
or the end of 2018. But you know what it's like making art. When you put something out, it means you've been working on it for about 6 to 12 months before. Yeah.
So maybe was it a point in your life where there was this need for authenticity and
Well, I think that's kind of what art bridges. It's like these feelings and thoughts you have within you, and the connection to that with these things going on in the outside world that have nothing to do with you. It's like the thing that meets those two ideals in the middle is that's where you sort of find art. And yeah, I think I always wanted to sort of, I always wrote songs in the state of like being in the zone, like being out there. Like it would be when I have a guitar in my hand and when there's a drummer in the room, like, and then I'd record it and I'd play off that feeling. And I think the more and more I do it, and the more I've worked in like studios, it's just like, you kind of have to be present to put something down and to feel it. Um, so yeah, I think that is kind of what it is. It's a document of how I'm doing.
yeah, just needing to explore how you're doing, and maybe um, without putting too much pressure on the work that you make. Uh, is it something that you use to explore, or do you have this vision or idea of I want to put something out about this feeling that I'm having, and then it's the output, or are you discovering as you're making?
And I think when I started making music, when I was like 16, 17, I wanted to make music that I wanted to listen to. Like, I think that's still the case now. Like, I feel I love the idea of like every man or every woman or every person's song, like a song that you hear that's obviously from a very specific place, but everyone can connect to it. And I think that is the ultimate goal of making music for me. It's like connection to other people, and firstly myself. Like if people come to a show and are like, oh, that song meant this or meant that to me, like even if it's nothing to do with what I'm thinking or was saying, it's like that's such a cool feeling. And I think that writing a song or finishing something for me tells me a lot about that. And like, every record's had like a different sort of moment, but it's all happened since 2018. And like now I got a band together to sort of perform the first record at the end of 2022, I think. We got them together, and that made me think, oh, I'd love to make a record that's like feels like a band is playing in the room, because that's like a really special thing. Like I grew up listening to records like that.
And how did you find those people? What was the process of, did you just
So much
call
trial and
out to the
error.
universe for them to come to you and they appeared, or
It wasn't as easy as like the Pixies as putting an advert in the NME or something, and then suddenly you have Kim Deal knocking at your door. Like, what the fuck? No, it was a cool process. Like, I very much felt like I was on my own when I started, and that was okay. And I was the first time I was sober for like 15 years or maybe more. So it was like a scary but exciting time because I was like starting to like see things and feel things and not be sort of numb all the time and sit with that and explore these processes. And when you start opening yourself up to good things start happening, as well as lots of awful things. Good things do happen. One of those things that happened to me was I got offered to I have a residency in this club that had just opened in West London by a really nice guy who ran the place, and I didn't know him at all, and I just went in there. I was very cocky, and I saw the band that was playing, and I told him that what I do is better than this. Can you have my band play here? And it's not the best strategy of like making friends or influencing people, but he was like, either he liked me or he felt a bit sorry for me or he wanted to see me fail, but he gave me the gig, and I had a venue that I was playing in, once or twice a month for over a year. And I had these songs, and I rekindled a friendship with a guy called Matt Olchin. Because we'd always we'd known each other. I used to watch his band play when I was at school, and we'd be playing, we're both guitarists in London, and he'd become like more of a seasoned songwriter, producer. He had a studio, and we'd always bump into each other at parties. It'd be like, oh, we should do a song together. Anyway, that happened that year, and I was sober this time, and he said that, and I was like, okay, how's Monday? I turned up, we did it. It was that song Borrowed Time. It was the first song we ever released, the first song on Spells. And I said to him, look, I don't have much money, but I can give you X amount to record 9 more songs, to like do this process on 9 more songs. And we just built it up, from the ground up as the song, and then brought in musicians to play their parts, like kind of in a sort of 70s, 60s flex,
Mm-hmm.
And I brought my friends in to play instruments, And a lot of those people, like Henry Danowski plays drums. I always wanted to be in a band with him. He went to Berkeley. He was like a jazz weirdo at school, like somehow just like was 14 and playing at Ronnie Scott's. And I always wanted to be in a band with him. So he was the initial guy, and we're still working on, he's on the last record. He's tours with me, and he does all the score stuff. But yeah, it was that place, Lalo, in Goulburn Road. This guy Taz, who took a chance, gave me a chance, and it just became like a place where I could feel safe to try out ideas, and and then that place turned into another. We started booking shows and recording music, and eventually we had a band. It was like me and Matt was originally on guitar, and this guy Connor, beautiful man Connor, was on bass, but eventually it turned into me, Matt, and Henry as like rhythm. Me on guitar, Matt on bass, Henry on drums, and then a really good friend called Adam, who I'd met from my brother, who wanted to originally play drums, but he was on keys. And then I met Freya down the line through doing a score, and I met her through the guy that was arranging the score. And then we just connected, and I love this sound of like, I didn't know it at the time, but the more we sort of played around with ideas, I love the sound of how electric guitar sounds like with a viola. Like they really complement each other in like a cool sort of Velvet Underground-y Jesus and Mary chain way.
Yeah, there's this beautiful multi-instrument layering in your music. That is not heavy. You. It's very light, and it's
Well, I kind of thank you. Like, I'm kind of done with the way that rock music sounds. I mean, even the term rock music sounds horrible these days. I don't know why. everything's so compressed and there's no air. There's no like it's no saying there's no humanity in rock music. It's like a really intense thing to say, but there's no like air in a lot of these records.
Yeah, or space to enter it yourself, I think.
Well, I think that's when everything's so compressed and everything's sort of, a lot of things are quantized, and I don't have any problem with those tricks and those things, but it's just like when everything sounds like Tetris, nothing feels wonky or weird. Yeah. And I don't know, I think like the more you sort of play around with different musicians in a room, the more you can like create these spaces. And it took us a while to get here. I also have a percussionist called Maurizio Revelico, who I met through my friend Kishon Khan, who plays in a band called Loki Terra, who are fantastic. They play a lot around London with this singer Dele Sosimi, who played keys for Fela Kuti, and they're just like one of my favorite live bands to see. They're actually a wedding band. I created a wedding band out of them, and it was so sick. I wish I could see that shit like every Friday night.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. They played songs like, what's that, Dorinda That Do You song, and Lee Hazelwood, and there was some Prince in there, and Zombies and Kinks. Rondo, didn't I? It's on that show Dave. Like, there's a hip hop tune that samples it, and it's really cool. It might even be Dave Bird. But yeah, like there's so many different types of musicians in London. I'm so blessed to have been here for such a long time, you know, that like...
You did grow up through a period of London music that was very raw, and it was underground in a way because the world wasn't so digital, and you got to experience these very different spaces and really incredible musicians at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
Or were you just in it and not really thinking about it, and you've absorbed?
I was like in awe of it and at the same time frustrated by it, I think, because I was very young and I wanted to be those bands, you know, I wanted to have that stage, but the music, the sound of the, you know, this is the thing that we're like talking about a lot. You talk about sounds and, you know, what I was just saying about musicians in London and all that. It's like, I think what London taught me, or just being in this world has taught me, is like, it's not about any of that. It's just about the song. Like, a good song can like cut through anything and break through any glass ceiling. And it's like, that's what it's about. And I think, you know, back to what we were saying about collaboration, like it's just key. It's key to great art. And I think the scene 2005, 2006, I was doing a club night called Young Turks, which is now a record label called Young. And yeah, we're putting on bands like, you know, like Adele, and she's not a band, but one person with a guitar, and like Florence the Machine and the Horrors and Noisettes and Ludes and Larrikin Love. It was a very special time, and it was like,
Yeah, special and a different way of approaching things. I think that's what was very powerful about
yeah, we like downloading stuff illegally on like LimeWire to DJ that night, you know, and like it did have a feeling of naughtiness to it, but we were just like in it, I guess. And you know, the term FOMO hadn't been coined yet, but you get it every night because you'd go out, you'd see like three amazing bands and up at a really cool party, and you'd hear about like six other amazing bands that played and two other parties. It's like, but you wouldn't be looking at it on a screen. You'd just be hearing about it the next day or whatever. And you'd just be like, all right, I need to be more on this. Like I need to sort of, you know, but I loved those times, and I love being part of, you know, the sort of organization of it. When I moved to London, I still like putting on shows and nights, but it's just, I love the idea of bringing people together, you know. And like whenever I'm sort of watching a band, like time just stops, you know. You're putting all these pieces together for that sort of magical moment.
Yeah, and I don't think we fully comprehend how sound impacts us. And so when you're there,
it's magic.
Present, yeah, it's magic. I was at a performance the other night, and just even that physical vibration of the bass coming through, sound just catapults you, and it's not necessarily something you can articulate verbally.
You can't. It's a language that you can't articulate. So it's just plain old magic. Like, so as a kid, I'm a magician. I shouldn't have thrown away all those leopard print shirts. As a kid, I would live in songs, I'd live in albums, I would live in songs. They're little worlds. And, if I listen to OK Computer, for example, from beginning to end, like, I'm back in that world, but I'm a, different person to I was then, but the same aspect. So, like, you just look at all these feelings from a different angle, and it's impossible to articulate, but it's a beautiful thing.
Listening to music has changed. We used to have albums, and now you've just got music on your phone. You can put headphones on, so you may not have to be in a room full of other people listening to a live performance.
Yeah, but then if you listen to that same piece of music in a room full of people, it's a totally different experience. And you have like days, hours, if not days of conversation to have with all these strangers because of it. So like the payoff is a lot better. I like both. I think that, like, we're talking before you press record, we're talking about Tyler, the Creator. I just be listening to his album all day, Chromacopia. And he said this thing that was interesting. I read, he put his record out on a Monday. Bands and artists all put their music out on Fridays nowadays. So he's trying to go again. Even like someone with like 36 million listeners can pretty much do whatever they want. And what they're going to put out is going to be interesting, is like going against the machine. So we know the machine is wrong. We know it's broken. It's a system that's sort of edited and aided and created by someone that's never made or created a song in their life, like the CEO of Spotify has never done that. So it's just like a business. It's, corporate Western bullshit. And music industry, maybe it always was, but there was something special 100% about, getting your £10 together and on a Friday or a weekend and going and to HMV, and you can just get one thing, or you find a bargain bucket of 3 for 1 or 2 for 1. And it's like, that's an essence. I'm not expecting the CEO of Spotify to find that essence and put it into what they're doing. But, there's something amazing as well about being able to listen to anything from the Beatles to the new Tyler, the Creator album to anything that's connected to those two things just by pressing that little radio button, and just being transported on a commute or a drive or a walk. Like, that is fucking wizardry. That's like magic as well. But like, I don't know, as a music maker, I see loads of holes in it, Maybe I'd see less holes as they move that decimal point a bit to the right. Because it just feels like we're not like worth anything. But as a music,
how do you approach that? Because you have recently started releasing this music in recent scale of where we are.
I started releasing
in the world.
Yeah, I mean, 2018, but really like my second EP came out during COVID. I'm going to put my dog down. Sorry, she's very heavy.
Hello, Ingrid.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough sell, but I didn't have any choice. But it was a universe thing. Just sort of follow your gut. A pandemic happened. 2 weeks before that happened, I got offered a sync for my song No Fools that was just online. I thought that song was a demo. I like hadn't taken it off online. I just left it there, and they wanted it for a show on Netflix, and they offered me 30 grand, like all in. So I was just like, and I was literally sending CVs out to record labels and things, thinking like, what else in this industry could I do? But really, like, I didn't want to do that, but it's just like, oh, it's like a thing. And yeah, I think during the pandemic, I just made more videos and visuals, which I love, and put them out. But like, I sort of see putting music out, it's like your business card, you know? It's not what it used to be. And I wasn't in the industry like when it used to be like, you know, big bucks and big hats. But you just got to sort of, you know, I want people to hear my music. I want to make more music. So the way of doing that is by just unloading the music onto the world and making more.
Do you make your music in its essence, make the music for the music, and then think about all of that other marketing side of things afterwards? Or are you feeling the pressure of things impacting you as you're composing?
Right. No, you can't do that. I'm just making the music for me. And then once I have a demo, I take it to Matt, producer and co-writer, and we just make the best thing we can make with those elements, you know? Scoring and composing that's different. It's less personal, and there's already something there to imprint your thing on. And it's a conversation that you have with executives and directors. But my music, yeah, I've never thought about that. I mean, weirdly enough, though, for my next album, Experience, that's coming out next year, that actually took the photo before we recorded anything, which was cool. Again, like very 70s, like the band
and gave
photo.
You a vision, the album cover.
Yeah, I mean, I had demos of these songs and they're flying around my head, and you know, originally it was just going to be another EP. And then I had a weird dream where I was carrying all these plastic bags and ended up going on this sort of crusade and ended up on the side of like a big sand dune. And that turned into like a bunk bed that I used to have when I was like 6. And then on the edge of the bunk bed, there was a piece of paper that said experience. And I remember thinking, it's not about the journey, it's about the experience. And it was a really stressful dream. I mean, I'm riddled with anxiety dreams, especially when fun things are going on. Or things, you know. And I just thought, oh, that's a cool name for record. And then I spoke to my very good friend and collaborator, Emma Chitty, who tends to creative direct most things that I've done. And she's doing the next record as well and doing a really cool job of it. We used to be in a band together called Sugar as well, which she did all the visuals for. She's really, really talented. And she's directed 2 of my videos before in the past. She was like, oh, we should explore like waiting rooms, and you know, if it's the journey to the experience, it's like, what is the journey for an artist? And I was just like, well, it's fucking waiting for sound check. It's waiting to get on the hottest bands on Spotify. You know, it's just sitting around looking at your phone and your computer, and it's like not that romantic. Like even being in a studio recording a guitar part that came to you in a really cool way, it's not that romantic. It's work, and it's sitting around. And I thought that was funny. And yeah, that the cover is us all sitting in a waiting room.
Just talking about dreams, I have dreams of airport check-ins.
Oh wow, yeah, because you've lived in so many different places.
I have a lot of but also I think it's to do with this waiting or I go to check in and they don't have my ticket, or it's that anxiety of that space of just exactly as what you've said.
Yeah.
And I think between experience, which I find is a very rich opportunity, but then sharing to the public, for example, which is what you're doing, there is this big transition both of mindset and time
Yeah.
in how you put a lot of work into building a song
Totally. I mean,
and then having to find the audience for it, or
yeah,
waiting for it to be received in a way that you don't necessarily have any control over.
no control. I mean, my only goal with all of these Attawalpa things is just to like build an audience and play to bigger crowds and meet more, more people and make more music. It's like, yeah, I remember being signed when I was, my 20s and stuff, and A&R guys would be like, what's your goal? And you'd say something, they'd be like, no, it's world domination. It's like, really? Did like the Rolling Stones even say that, or the Beatles even say that? I think they're just like, you just do it, see what happens. And yeah, it's like crazy the amount of artists that get uploaded to Spotify every day. And then you're also competing with David Bowie and the Rolling Stones, because it's like you can listen to all that stuff there as well, which is so mad. So it's like,
Yeah, they need a
whatever.
section. It's highly successful artists that have now passed.
Yeah, it's like, why don't we just allow the slow burners to happen,
I
Like,
think as well you're competing with people that do want world domination. And so
well, those people probably won't be doing this in 10 years.
the slow burn is a different approach.
Mm.
And the people are very different in their makeup of how they're approaching their work in that way. And I don't think, it's very hard to be judged by these figures on a listening platform.
Yeah, but, whether we like it or not, like you take your song to radio. Like my first song, I just put it on this thing called BBC Uploader, and that gets sent to all the DJs at the BBC radio. And, how many people must do that? I was just like, my brother told me to do it because I had a very big problem with putting stuff out there. I'd sit on things, make excuses, change the name of things, but I just did it. And my friend Tom did these really cool photos. Emma again creative directed them, so I looked like an Inca. And then like it got picked up, like it got played on like 3 radio stations, like 6 Music, where it's the radio station that I would listen to, be like, oh, I could be on this, like, you know. And part of me was like, world domination. But no, it's just like
Ego starts flashing.
It's just like Steve Lamacq is playing your song, and that's cool. But I think, when you're, a Rihanna or a Taylor or a Charlie XCX or a Chappell Roan, it's like, can they tell you can chill out now? Can he tell you can make an album now? It can be whatever genre you want. Just have fun. I don't think so. I think it's like we have to build. Like what I'm saying, I want to build every record I release. It's like, it's capitalism. It's like we need to make this bigger or it's not working. And it's like, that's not art. I think art is like taking chances, using your talent in weird ways, sometimes trying to fit a circle into a square peg. It's trial and error. And like, yeah.
I also think it's building a life's work, maybe not building the empire, but
Well,
building
that
on
could
your
be
own
the
creative
empire.
practice. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But developing your skill and refining it and
Yeah, like
clarifying how it is or shifting, because I think, of course, and even, listening to your work from spells to now, it shifts. And I think it's because you've also shifted
that's nice to
as a
hear.
person, and it's inevitable. Oh, well, and no artist wants to make an album that's the same every time, unless you're have mastered some very niche audience that wants that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just about evolving. And, I spent my 20s touring around the world with lots of different bands, putting my 10,000 hours into playing guitar and in weird situations, like, playing festivals is stranger than playing big venue gig, like 5,000 capacity venue gigs. It's like you got to be on your toes and things go wrong and you got to keep it going. And I think that sort of tuned my ear into a lot of things. And yeah, I just think I'm just fascinated by creation and being a part of it.
Yeah. Do you feel yourself performing live, or do you feel yourself in the studio?
I like being. I've always seen myself performing live, but because I'm kind of afraid of it, it's the unknown. But I kind
Of
of
making a mistake, or just the unknown of
yeah,
being
or
so
just like
exposed?
even something else could go wrong outside of my power. Like a fuse could go, or someone could shout something mean. You don't know, like. But also a song, it feels different. Like we've been rehearsing right for this. We're doing a tour of the UK next week, opening for this artist called Liz Lawrence, who's fantastic. And I'm doing most of the dates as a duo, myself and Freya Hicks, who plays viola in the band. And she's like, she's going through a bunch of pedals with a viola, and I'm going through a bunch of pedals and an amp. She's going through an amp as well with my jazz master. And the songs, there's no drummer there's no backing track. It's like every rehearsal we've had things, I've recorded everything and I listened to it, and everything shifts and forms to like that moment. It's like very specific, and I think that's so cool. And it like I can feel like half the set of the songs are songs that have been released, and half the set are new songs that are yet to be released. And I'm just happy, like I'm happy that those songs exist and will be in the world as like a part of that. But it's just so exciting to like be in the moment, even if the moment is scary, which a lot of times it is. Like I used to puke before I went on stage till I started drinking, weirdly, ironically. When I was playing shows when I was like 17, 18, 19, I really, started touring and stuff and drank beer. Like I never would drink beer, but I would get so sick, and I'd like, read stories and heard stories about Kirsty McCall having the same thing. And it's like, I just thought that was so crazy. And like being a man as well, it's like, it's taken me like 38 years to sort of scrape the surface of being in touch with how I'm feeling. And, as an artist, like that's really important. And I think when I was like 17, I was like, yeah, just, it's cool. I'll get it. It's rock and roll, and sort of hide it with like drinking or whatever. But no, it's like you're feeling things and you're in the moment. Don't get out of that. That's like, I'm so excited to be doing this in the state that I'm in, the current state.
As creatives, I think fear is a very big part of making a lot of work because you're vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, this is really stripped back, just guitar, viola, and these lyrics. And I'm like, proud of them, Like, that's the thing that we spend the most amount of time on, like me and Matt. It's like, what do I want to say? And like, I find the sense of humor's been taken out of a lot of things. Like I'm from the school of thought that if like something is heavy, then the best way to sort of stare at it or be curious about it is to sort of make it light by making fun. But yeah, I'm proud of those words, and that used to be the thing that I would always go back and change bits and bits. And I'm so happy that I've learned to sort of let go more.
I wanted to ask you about the process of composing, and when do you stop, or when do you, because I think you could keep changing a song, could keep shifting. How do you feel that it feels settled? Or
Usually a producer has to tell me,
mm-hmm.
or you just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Like with a lot of songs on Experience, yeah, you sort of feel it, and especially the people performing these parts. That's one thing. And then there's the mixing and mastering of it all, which is the very subtle ear. I trust our mixer, Eduardo de la Paz, who I also met um, at that residency in that club. He saw us play there. Also, promoter saw us play there. But Eduardo is always, he was like, "Oh, I love your stuff. I'd love to mix it." And we had two guys we were talking to, and Eduardo got the job, and he's mixed everything ever since. So I just trust him, kind of blindly. And then I trust Dua Gormson, who masters all our stuff. So I think if you can get it to that point, and they agree, you want to play it to lots of people as well. You want to have if you have the confidence to be like, "Hey, listen to this," I think you're on that path. And like, there's a certain thing like where you can make something beautiful, and then you can sort of start opening it up to see what makes its heartbeat, and take the heart out and see what it's, and then you've destroyed it. So it's like you're gonna need to have people around you to tell you to stop. And I think like once you get into a flow of creating, you sort of get there yourself. But that was the thing that I used to find really hard. But I think we're getting good at it. Like Matt and I have been working now together for 6 years, and
There's a more intuitive understanding of what.
Yeah, without even having to say words. Yeah. Like I did something the other day as well. Me, Freya and I like did it, and it was for my mother-in-law's an artist called Laurie Simmons, a really fantastic artist, and she's got two pieces in this exhibition in Dallas at Fort Worth Museum in November, and she asked me to score one of them, which is a 4.5-minute sort of AI video of these dolls, like 3 chapters of these creepy dolls that she's programmed based on her past works, living in this sort of dollhouse, I guess, based on this house in Connecticut. And it's really trippy. I haven't really looked at AI. I find that whenever I sort of focus on something, AI, it makes me kind of feel sick, and I don't really want to look at it very long. And especially when you start focusing on like the hands and the things that just don't look human, it's like, okay, why are we doing this? But Laurie's piece was like, it was so fun to score that and soundtrack it. And, my initial process, I guess, is to throw everything at something and then reduce it, like produce it and then reduce it. But because it was like such a weird visual of these AI dolls in their like swimming pools and their houses, and then looking at their phones and their hands like melting into their phones. I wanted to make something as human, so I made like a waltz 3/4 chord progression with like a Elliott Smith-esque guitar underneath it, like played on an acoustic. And then like I started reamping everything through like Strymon Brigadier pedals, like delays and reversed things, and just like made these human sounds, but then messed with them, like kind of what AI is. It's like taking information created or thought of by humans, and it's like spitting it out, and we're looking at it like, oh, well, look at that, isn't that cute?
Were you given a brief for this?
The brief was totally different, and I just went against the brief. The brief was like, it wasn't really a brief. Laurie was just like, I always thought about it like, having toy instruments. Like she has this toy piano that she bought off Etsy, and she was like, wouldn't that be cool? And there is a toy piano in it. But once I got in it, and then I put like a viola layer and a string solo, and then I reamped all of that and put it through like a Jack White Bumble Buzz pedal, which like distorts it. And it just became really fun. It kind of led into like what Freya and I are doing on this tour as a duo, it sort of let us be free and play around in the field of composing. So now we're like in the building of like touring these songs with these limitations and these ideas that we learned from playing in that field. But it was I think you have to take risks. Like the only risk was like Laurie turning around being like, yeah, this isn't what I wanted, I'm going to go with this person. But then isn't it so much fun if she turns around and is like, this isn't even what I wanted, this is great, and also another layer on top of that, she is my mother-in-law, so you don't want to let down your mother-in-law in any way.
Definitely not.
But I was super up for letting her down because I felt this and it took me on a journey. And that's like a micro version of like, kind of what we're talking about, of knowing when to stop and just knowing what path you should go down.
I also think there's something interesting in collaboration, and I really appreciate what you've said, that you've just completely ignored the direction that someone wanted, because you were asked to do this because of your skill, and it was just like you were talking about your sound mixer. You trust them, you let them do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And if you are collaborating, there is this pressure of pleasing the other person's needs and not allowing it to be a process for you to create something new and discover something, which I think is very brave and refreshing, of how you went that direction, even if it's not received
especially
in the way
if it's
that
your
it's
mother-in-law
wanted.
and she's like an incredible artist, and
she's an amazing artist, so I'd be highly
you should probably do what she says. Like I say everyone should do what she says, but in that moment I didn't. And I think we both got something cool out of it. Like,
well, yeah, now approaching your live performance in this way, if you hadn't done that,
if I hadn't done that,
and I think you get to execute and test out the way that you're performing now. Going on this tour. And that's what's really beautiful about collaboration. I think it shifts.
It's key to great
art. It shifts
art
without even knowing that you've shifted in doing something new.
Yeah, like I think with most creatives, I think we just want to be like kids. We always want to play and always want to have that feeling of we're playing and this is feeling new and exciting and we're exploring, and I think collaboration is like a sure catalyst road to that. It leads you there.
Have you always been assured in yourself to hold that space for yourself? Say if you'd been asked to do this kind of project 10 years ago, would you have been a bit more malleable?
I wish people had asked me to do projects like this 10 years ago. I mean, I'm definitely more sure of myself now. I think the more you do, the more sure you become. But in a lot of ways, when you're in your 20s and your teens, you think you can do anything. But people don't take you seriously. So yeah, it's different. I think people just sort of trust that I will actually hand something in nowadays.
And do you think people believe that you value your own work?
I don't know what people believe. I'm always fascinated to hear what individuals think and individuals believe. I mean, I love the feedback I'm getting from this album. I love the feedback I got from Autofiction, which is the name of Laurie's piece. And I can't wait for it to be shown. And it's going to be projected on a big wall at Fort Worth Museum in Dallas. And that's going to be so cool. And it's going to be such an experience for people to walk around and have that, sort of navigating their opinion of what they're seeing, which is also far out. But like, when I play people that on my record, I'm fascinated to hear what people feel, and that's why I love live music, because it's a direct moment, and I've always loved meeting people afterwards and hanging out. But now that it's like, this is the first time I'm really doing it with my music, so actually like means, it's going to be a trip, because you don't know what it's going to be like, but you're kind of creating this vision just came to me. It's like when you're playing music and it's intimate, right? And you can feel the audience. You're sort of creating a psychedelic pillow or mattress that people can sort of, that thing when you're like the trust thing, when you're like fall back and you catch, it's like something like that, but you're creating it for just them, to rest this, to like relax their spine and unquench their shoulders and just like be. It's like, it's a really personal kind of intimate thing. And obviously, like, you care if it works, but also if it doesn't work, that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's feedback. And so when you're thinking about leaning back, you're also feeling the pressure from the person. How much are they trusting you and letting go? And so I
Yeah,
think in live performance, you can respond to that and get a feel for it, whether doesn't mean
totally.
it's good or bad. It's just you're getting a response. And maybe there's this huge disconnect from the digital. You don't get to have that moment.
I hope they're feeling good.
Was introduced to your work through the sound scores for Sharpstick.
Yeah,
And I was taken aback by that
quite edgy
experience.
chopstick. Yeah, we're just trying to create the sound in Sarah Joe's head with that score.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. That film was crazy because it was the first film I saw in a cinema post-COVID.
Oh
And I
wow,
love going to the cinema. So
that's so
that in
cool.
itself was really lovely. But then the sound was so lovely. And I have an interest in sound. And so I looked it up and like, who did this? Because it was different. There was a lot of air. It wasn't heavily loaded with music.
That's so
But then
cool.
I discovered that you've got all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the other way around, which is
Yeah.
interesting. We really enjoyed making that score. It
I mean, it was a
was
great film. It was such a
it was such a
beautiful
creative
narrative.
and like
Yeah.
beautiful experience, and it was the first thing I'd seen of Lena's. I remember she played me a very early cut of that film.
Mm-hmm.
All I'd seen of hers was a pilot episode of Industry, which really stressed me out. Like, that's a really stressful show. It's really cool. It's amazing, but like, Jesus Christ, those kids, how are they doing that every day? Like, anyway, when she asked us to do that, I was like, yeah, of course. Like, we'd done some short arty films, which are kind of like soundscapes, but then like we'd done this song called Tucked in Tight, which is on the second EP, Patterns. It closes it, and Lena actually ended up doing the music video for it, which was really fun. And that song actually took a year to mix. Eduardo nearly didn't want to work with me anymore after that. But it was like the first time Matt and I had ever done a string arrangement in an Attawalpa song, and like we really went in it. Like, the song starts with piano and vocal, and then the middle of it, these strings start coming in. I think it's violins and cellos. Well, no, it's maybe just violin and viola. Viola's like, it goes lower than a violin, and we just got our friend to just layer loads of stuff on top of each other, loads of thick strings, what we'd written on MIDI. And then at the end of the song, it goes all electronic, and then it ends finally with the electronic fighting the piano. My friend Matt Jones played the piano on that. He also played the piano on Sharpstick. So all the elements for what we thought Sharpstick should be was there. We were obsessed with the Virgin Suicide's Air soundtrack.
Amazing. Yeah.
And like, you know, I was listening obsessively to EXO by Elliott Smith. And there are string arrangements on that, but they're quite like a bit thick sounding, but I just love the chord progressions and the waltzes. It was like before she has sex in Sharpstick, everything's in 3/4 or 6/8. And then afterwards, everything becomes 4/4, and we introduce like drums, and there's a lot of like reverse pianos, which is like her sort of trying to process, the people around her and her everyone's complicated,
Yeah, everyone is complicated in that film, which.
But it's like life, like that. Lena's so good at
that's what
doing
I
that.
think,
It's like so fucking real, and it's that thing.
It's
It's like
raw
it
and
could be
it's so
really
innocent.
fucked up and depressing, but it's actually she makes it funny, like.
And also beautiful. It's very
Like John Bernthal playing that character. It's like no one who else would have casted John Bernthal to play like such a weak, awful man, and it's so cool of John Bernthal to say yes to that, because it's like something,
absolutely.
After doing The Punisher and like all these sort of sexy roles, it was so cool and like so fun to score that.
So can I just ask you about the scores? Do you come in after everything's been done and then interpret it, or how
For that we did.
you approach?
It's different for every project. Usually a composer will come in towards the locking or, towards the editing time of a show. If they're not connected to the production, if they're not a creator, that's when they come in once the creators and the writers and the directors like sat enough with what they have to know what it should sound like. And I think the job of a composer is basically to give it that sonic glue that it's missing. Like Lena and I both agree, and Matt, we all agree that like things that are overly scored, it's like, unless it's a musical, which I'm not that big on musicals, to be honest, but it's like, it doesn't feel like the writing can't shine through that. It's like it's fighting something. So, yeah, I mean, I think the same works with sound design, like.
Well, that was the definite shift for me in that film, was feeling that the sound score wasn't heavy and that it felt different, which was so odd for some reason, because I thought, well, why is it not approached like this by everyone? But
that's such a sweet thing to say.
Yeah, it was light. I wanted to ask you how the process of working on film has contributed to your music composition, because I think in a way that lightness and space also exists. Yeah. And layering exists in your work. And has that shifted working on those projects? Again, going back to, you've just worked on this other thing with Laurie Simmons.
That's a great question.
It's all this circular.
I think everything that we do should evolve what we do. Like, to answer your initial question, like spells and my sort of production style, I can't speak for Matt, but we both had studios around that time and we were both recording bands, Like, the first thing I ever produced in the studio around that time was a Misty Miller B-side that got released for Universal or something. And before that, I was just really recording bands. And, the idea of producing and you're creating a space, it's like when you're orchestrating something or writing a piece for like an ensemble, like a 4-piece or 12-piece ensemble. It's like you're just imagining the room and imagining the space and making sure things don't get in the way of other things. And I think with spells, I layered my vocals a lot, probably because I was like more insecure then. And also what I'm doing now is like, I want it to feel live. I don't want it to feel poppy and stacked vocals. And also I'd sung a lot of these songs on Experience before we recorded them. And I had a really weird process demoing those songs because a lot of them will appear in this TV show that I'm currently scoring. But anyway, spells. We're excited. We want to layer things. We want to make sounds, and you sort of, you'd read stories and see YouTube videos of like Jimi Hendrix recordings where like they'd put like a little piano just to make things in his guitar pop out. It's like a layer that makes the landscape more poignant and beautiful. And there was a lot of that in spells and patterns, like a lot of sort of soundscapey layering things of like, we always call it psychedelic bubble baths. We need to put more psychedelic bubble bath in there.
Yeah, that's a nice
and I love that. Like,
description.
I'd love to just make a record that's just that one day, I could listen to that stuff all day. But then you do like, we did Sharpstick and we got into string and piano arrangements, because you wanted the score to feel like you're walking into a room, into a jazz bar or a bar that has live music, and you see like, a band, like a piano, bass, drums, and like a string quartet. And you're just enjoying it. You're sitting there and you're enjoying it. That was the kind of idea. Like, we didn't have much time to do it. We didn't have much money to do it. But we had the push of like, we need to do this, and the musicians, because we'd made, 2 EPs before then. We had like a nice world of people. And I met this great string arranger at a gig. He was playing with this artist called Blossom Calderon, and they did an amazing version of No Surprises by Radiohead. And I asked like, who did that? Who arranged that? And this guy, Hayden Wynn, and I got his number and I got him into like, me and Matt wrote the score, and then he arranged it. And then we went to his music college to like, sat there like watching these musicians play these cues back to us. We were just like, me and Matt looked like, you ever watched that show, The Young Ones?
No, I haven't.
Rick Mail's first TV show that he did, and it's all about these 3 guys that live in a flat in London together. There's a punk, there's like a sort of mod, there's a hippie, and there's Rick Mail, who's an art student. And it's in like the late 70s and stuff. And we walked into this like London College of Music looking like, I felt like we were one of the young ones. We didn't belong there, even though we're all working for the same cause, we're all doing the same thing, and it was just like, it was quite a funny experience. I'll always remember that. And then we did, and that kind of fed into the present stuff. Like, we just decided to add a couple of songs there and got Hayden and Freya to like do the strings for that. And then, you play live and you just sort of, it's the immediate knowing of what you want. Like, there's no limitations in a studio. You can literally put anything you want in there. You could put a gong in there last minute, or like a timpani, and just do it on MIDI. But I think when you're playing live, you get more of a feel of what you can realistically sort of want to do. And I think, every record, every film we've done, we also did the soundtrack for Catherine Called Birdy, which is Lena's movie for Amazon, that had a lot of strings and a lot of sort of acoustic instruments. We didn't want to add too much electric guitars or snares, because it was like a period movie based in the late 1200s about a girl who gets a period and her parents try and sell her off to the highest bidder. Kind of like, in a sort of, it had a feeling of like Clueless, but with Bella Ramsey, who's an incredible actor.
Yeah, very modern and
very
hilarious.
modern. But the backdrop is like, horse and carriage. So like, we didn't want any like, guitars or snares. And we bought this drum off eBay. It was like a toy drum from like the 1800s. And we called it the ghost drum. And I would like demo all these drum parts, and we'd have like 2 drum that turned into timpanis and a kit, but all the kits like got the snares off and stuff, and it created a real sound and a vibe. And you get that through trial and error, and it's conversations that you have with Lena, with the director. I had one conversation with Carter Burwell, who did the score, who's a genius, and
How is that working with someone of that level?
Well, we didn't really. Like, we just told him what we were doing, and he was just like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then we met at the premiere, and it was like, yeah, it worked. He was like, yeah, I know. His whole thing was like, his score was all voices, because that's the original instrument. And we had that in the back of our head. It's like these little things that can just open a dimension, open a door, and just lead you into a field of fun.
Do you enjoy working on these film compositions, and is it something you would like to continue?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to make music I love film. Film is my first sort of obsession, and I was always, drawn to soundtracks and scores and stuff. The first time I got into trouble was for bringing a Pulp Fiction script into my Latin class. It came like with Empire, the magazine. It came free with it, and my Latin teacher was just like, "You can't have that here." And then when he gave it back to me at the end of the day, he was like, "It's a great film." I was like 10. I have older siblings, so I grew up in a household where we'd just be watching like the latest, whatever.
And you go to the video store and get a bunch of DVDs. And
so dreamy. VHSs back then, yeah. But yeah, like, I've always thought that was a cool thing to do.
How does that relate to music videos that you're making? Do you have much input in those compositions, or do you let someone else deal with a lot of the visuals? Because it feels the video, I think it comes with producing it and releasing it. Everyone has to do a visual. But you seem to enjoy it, I'm assuming, because you're working with film.
Imagine if I hated it.
You can hate it.
And I was just making videos on Presents. There was like 6 videos for 10 songs on that record or something. The first 2 EPs have a video for every song, I think. Which was a COVID thing. It was like there was nothing else to do, and I got obsessed with it. I'm a kid, an MTV generation kid. I grew up entranced by it.
We had Rage in Australia, and it would just play music video.
Yeah, Rage is great. I mean, they'd show Rage on MTV2 late night here. Rage in 120 Minutes is what they had in America. We had guest hosts like Thurston Moore and Beck and Beastie Boys, and yeah, it was really cool. And it was a whole insight into that visual thing of like, the Pixies sound like this, and then they look like this, but their videos are like this. It's like, okay, so you got three different ways it can be seen, 3 different angles. And now with Instagram, it's kind of diluted it, because you kind of don't really want to see what like Black Francis is having for breakfast. Who cares?
But I think some people do care a lot.
I guess some
I think
people
that's the
care.
problem. Is
Maybe
like a lot of people care.
Maybe I care, but not today. But yeah, I think there's like, we've lost a bit of the mystery and the sort of the unknown, sort of mysticism, so that's the word, of the song, and like, whoever's behind it. So I like expressing that with different visual people, and I try and have as much input as I can, as much input as I want them to. Like, if someone feels like, whoa, man, like, when you're at a party and someone's like talking at you, it's like, I never want to be that guy. But obviously when it's your song and stuff, like, I can be that guy. But if you tell me like, back off, and it's we want to work together. That's the thing with music videos. There's no money in it. You're not going to spend a lot on them. So the director and the people involved, they're just doing it for their reels. They're doing it for expression. They're doing it because a big part of them wants to do it and can do it in that moment in time. So like usually, well, in my case, every video has been like a really cool experience. In that sense, it's the animation ones that go on a little bit because animation. I always forget that animation does take forever.
I really
Yeah, and
appreciate
I always,
animation.
oh, it's so crazy. Like I got obsessed with this show called, it's the guy that did Adventure Time. It was on Netflix.
With like Brene Brown, and because there's this one on Netflix that I
Yeah,
just love. I can't.
Duncan Trussell was the guy.
Yeah, Midnight
Midnight
Gospel.
Gospel.
Wonderful, but so much effort.
Yeah, so I got obsessed with that. And you know, they had the audio to that, I think, before they started drawing to it. He was just like, oh, this is, they were hanging out one day. He was like, oh, I got all this stuff that'd be cool to do something to. And, that was the jump off point, I think. But it just looks so beautiful. And it's proper psychedelic bubble bath.
It is, and it just complements the conversation. It just makes everything. I think the one with getting chopped up into little pieces of like mince meat or something.
Yeah, just going through that city.
It's just such a wonderful visual.
Apparently that was done or conceptualized on a lot of ketamine, which
there's definitely a lot of psychedelic bubbles happening.
Yeah, understand. More like psychedelic concrete bubbles.
Well, I'm glad they did it. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, we did another one called the song called Yellow Fingers, which is all done by we wanted this director I was talking to. We had lots of different ideas. He had lots of ideas, and we ended up going down the animation route because he met these guys called Planet Froth in LA, and they just make like little video games. And I always thought it'd be cool to have like a video game thing. I mean, not like the Red Hot Chili Peppers Californication, like a sort of. I wanted we spoke about the superhero being a woman called Ima Sumac, based after like a Peruvian singer that I'm obsessed with, who I'm supposedly related to, if we both are related to Attawalpa. And I'm a stripper just dancing on repeat, and my whole existence is this limbo of just stripping and dancing on pole, exotic dancing. And I got a thong and these slides shoes on, and she comes and rescues me and takes me to the beach. And it was such a funny, we had a 4-hour conversation, and then he just went away and did this thing, which was mad, but so fun. And, Emma Chitty as well has directed she did this video for Too Much, the song called Too Much, where I wasn't involved at all. I was in Peru at the time, and she just made it and shot it in a couple days and picked all the locations. And there was an action scene where the actor in it gets hit by a car. Yeah, I don't feel great about it. Especially I wasn't going to be there, but it was really so cool. Just to see what people come up with and how people visualize things.
So nice to think that you're creating this space for someone else to come in and be creative, express their own creative needs. And they wouldn't have had that if you hadn't created the song.
Exactly. Yeah, that is cool.
And it not necessarily having to be your control, and letting them foster whatever it is that they need to.
It's cool. It's just that whole thing of connecting with people again. I think making visuals.
Going back to our first conversation of this world domination, maybe you're not aware that it exists in a different way. It's like this intricate network of people working together, but it may not be reflected back to you in sales or followers, or it's a different kind of web that's being built.
Yeah.
and you all grow together, or it builds up a bigger platform for something that you don't know what's coming.
Totally. It's a slow burner, and I love that, you know? Like, most of my favorite bands didn't make their most interesting records till like the third record. And nowadays, if you're at a major, like, and your first two records don't do well, then you probably wouldn't get a chance to make a third. But I think it takes time. It's like, you know, growing a plant.
So you've got Experience coming out firstly in January, is that correct?
Yeah, first single and video. Every single has a video. And then January and February, March, and then the album will drop in April. And we also I've been co-creating a TV show all year. But me and my wife, called Too Much. It's a wild thing when, you know, the person you're dating is a genius and a writer and makes TV, but you haven't really seen what she's made. And yeah, in the moment we started dating, it's like I saw Industry, I watched Sharpstick, and I wasn't going to just start binging like girls, you know, while I'm getting to know, rather get to know the person, see the latest thing they've done.
Sure.
And yeah, one day I will. I mean, I did actually start watching it when she was filming a movie a couple years ago, and I really missed her. But yeah, like...
Girls is transformative, I think. I don't think it's necessarily something to watch just to get to know your partner, but to understand.
Well, what I watched, I was like, it freaked me out because it made me think about me in my 20s, and it's like so of that time, and then it made me think of like what I was doing when Lena was doing that.
How have you found it collaborating on this project, again, with the balance of ideas and creative output?
Well, one day Lena was just like, hey, would you want to write a TV show? Would that ever be something you want to do? And this was really early on in our dating, and I think I was like, what is that? Like, is that a job? She's like, yeah, it's a job. I do that job. And I was like, well, what do I do? She's like, you just walk around, like, pacing in the room, saying jokes, and I'll type it out. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds really lovely. Like, of course I'd love to do that. And then, you know, we kind of conceptualized this idea, and music was always a big part of it from the beginning, because the lead man is a London musician, the lead woman isn't, but she has, like, you know, an ex that sort of tells her that she doesn't have taste or whatever, because he's like some pitchfork journalist who thinks he knows everything. And yeah, we sort of wrote an idea, and the sort of the bridge of the whole season, and we sort of sat on it for a bit, and then we had two meetings. One I thought went really well, but we didn't get it, because that's kind of, I think, how a lot of Hollywood is. And then the other one was with Netflix, and it was all in a room, and we seemed like we'd got it. And then we got to writing, and that was like, you know, similar to writing music, but it's like a lot more of like carving bits out of you, and, you know, it's like can't hide behind anything, you know, it's just words, and a lot of it was already written, and people liked what they'd seen. And I co-wrote an episode with Lena. When you're writing TV and you're writing characters, it's like you create this character based on ideals and ideas, and then that character kind of becomes its own person, and it's very interesting writing in that sense. And then, yeah, we filmed it at the beginning of this year, and that was wild. Like, a lot of disassociation happening. Like, is this really happening? Like, you know, I'm seeing Stephen Fry saying things that I wrote, and it's just weird. And a lot of my music, you know, we played a show of the songs because I wanted to show Will Sharp, who's playing this character Felix, like what it's like, you know, we hung out a bit, we played some guitar together, really get on with him. He's a lovely, lovely guy. But I was like, you know, before I wanted to record, because you have to record the music before you film it. This isn't the score, this is the on-screen music. So I thought, like, before we're recording something that's supposed to look like live music, we have to play it live. Like, so we did like a 4-piece version, like a grungier version of Attawalpa, with these songs that, you know, if it was just an Attawalpa thing, I probably wouldn't have been ready to record them yet. But the fact that it was sort of a demoing through the show and with Will Sharp singing, I was like, yeah, like I was just super open to things. And we had lots of songs, and then, you know, Will came down, and it was kind of funny, like seeing him after the show and chatting, and then on set, it was like, okay, he's become this guy and he's singing these songs. And then, yeah, it was just like kind of wild, like he'd sort of borrowed a piece of my soul. Because that is what a song kind of is, I guess. And then when it's like within the world, have you ever seen that movie Cynic Doki New York?
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit like that. It was a little bit like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like my life kind of became a little bit like all those
like
things.
You didn't matter anymore. And not that you didn't matter, but you were just watching something.
Yeah. But it's something you'd sort of written or been a part of. Like that thing of making a music video, like wouldn't have happened without the song. It's like a bit of that, but there's just on a Netflix production, just so many layers and cogs and things. You just gotta, like, you know, at first I was just like wanting to control things.
Let go of ownership.
You just have to let go of it. And but it was such a beautiful experience. It's been really beautiful seeing the edit, and, you know, it was like a catalyst for me and Lena's relationship as well, because we get to spend all day together and we get to see each other work. You know, most couples just get home and are tired and like Netflix and chill. And yeah, and then the music stuff is like, you know, during the writer's strike, Matt and I just wrote loads of music because we couldn't really do anything with the show. And I wanted to use the show to sort of catalyze my songs. I did a bit of writing during that time, but we like read the scripts and wrote a bunch of music, a bunch of themes, and then that sort of gave us an idea of what not to do, more than what to do, I guess. And yeah, we've just been sort of demoing to the edits, which most composers wouldn't really get to do till it's locked. But because I'm a co-creator, you know, I'm very grateful and in a blessed position that we can do that. And like Netflix have been, you know, there's, touch wood, there's been no like, hey, can you rethink that? It's like my music editor keeps saying like, yeah, man, like that's really amazing that Netflix are like saying positive things. And in my head, I'm like, obviously it's good because it's like the show that we're making.
You're also very embedded in it right now. Like it's hard to actually know what's happening. Will you release those songs being performed as Attawalpa in the new album, or are they separate? They're just pieces you've written?
No, they're embedded to experience.
Okay, so they are. So you will be then performing them as you at another point in time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's two separate worlds. It's like the Too Much TV show, and then there's like a big needle drop moment that plays an Attawalpa song. But like, if you listen closely to Felix's band rehearsals and the gigs that aren't going so well in his mind, you'll be like, oh, that song sounds like something that's like, yeah. You know, at the end it will say written by Lewis Felber and Matt Olchin. But yeah, it's like two separate worlds.
That have somehow become enmeshed in a way. Like you seem to be oscillating in these very different worlds, but you've been able to articulate and translate your work between
totally. And it's like the Sharpstick thing as well. Like the Sharpstick had a Attawalpa song, Peter Gabriel's Dream, in it, which is like a very bouncy sort of song. And I love the moment when that comes in against like the score that you've just heard. And, you know, the score is like the word that we're using a lot, as well as psychedelic bubble bath, is cloudy. Like I got obsessed with Simpsons Wave. I mean, I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. Matt Groening drew Bart Simpson on my arm. Cool. I queued for about 4 hours and he drew that on my arm, and I asked him to draw it on me, and he asked me, like, he was like, I hope you're not going to get that tattooed. And I was like, why would you say that, Matt? Why wouldn't you like something tattooed? He was like, "Oh, it just freaks me out when my fans have my art tattooed on them." And I was like,
very cool.
"You're Matt Groening.
Accept
like,
it. Accept who
just
you
deal
are.
with it. Yeah, accept it, dude. If you're not going to accept it now, like, you know." But yeah, there's this thing on YouTube called Simpsons Wave, which is like Frank Ocean-y, cloudy synths, weird drums to really weird visuals, and it's all like weird colors, and I don't know. I was like, that's cool, and like, you know, Felix's band's kind of like my band, but it's got that grungier thing. Like, I was playing a Stratocaster, and then when I started demoing these songs, I was like, I think I need a Mustang, like, you know, not quite a Jag-Stang, like exactly the guitar Kurt Cobain played, but it just has that sort of grungy sort of feel, and I don't know, it's like it bridges the gap of like Jessica's World, which is pegged by Meg Stalter, which is like, you know, poppy, Taylor Swifty vibes, and what Felix likes. It's like alternative. And the score kind of does that, and these little music moments, like a lot of bands that I've been in the scenes with and in London with, I've included them in the show because, you know, the meet cute scene is at this pub called the Ivy House. I don't know if you were ever there when you came to London. It's in Peckham, and it's a beautiful, beautiful venue. The first ever community pub in London. And I just wanted to, you know, make the world as real as possible. And it was so fun. Like, quite overwhelming, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and I think you seem humble enough that you've experienced this and you can be present in it and still make the work that you want to make.
I mean, my big thing of like, the reason I called the first album Presence is like my issue from like, you know, we won't turn this into therapy session or a autobiography, but it's disassociation, you know, the inability to sort of be present, which can trail off into depression or whatever. And when you get overwhelmed, like when you have good news and when you have bad news, I'd get the same reaction. I'd just be like out in the clouds and just like not in my body, not there. And I called it Presence because I'd started doing EMDR therapy, which sort of pulled me more into like being present, and that was the goal. I was like, today I'm going to be present. You know, you have to remind yourself that. And I think I had to, you know, deal with a lot of those issues making this show and writing some of, you know, things and delving into things. And you have to do that writing songs, you know, you sort of delve in, and rather than spacing out and just going on a YouTube journey for like an hour and then going back to it, you're not really there anymore. Like, I was just, it was like every day I was like, going to be present. But
I think it's a global struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, phones don't help, do they?
And just, everything. I mean, we're just so inundated with information. Which we were talking about our childhoods. We were very fortunate to be in a time where we maybe got to experience that space.
Totally, but it was called boredom then. We called it boredom, and we were like, why can't I watch TV? Or why can't I watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Or why can't I play on my Game Gear or Nintendo? You know, it's just like endless distractions.
Yeah.
And, you know, in those days I lived in albums, I lived in movies. It was like I wasn't pondering.
Can I ask you what your first album was that you bought?
I guess, like, you know, my brother and sister all bought records and they were in their 20s when I was young. Around the age of like 9 or 10, it was like, like probably Different Class by Pulp.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Maybe. The Great Escape, like Oasis, Blur. But the first album I like remember asking my mum to buy timidly when I was 13 or 12 was 36 Chambers. And I was, obsessed with that. I remember one Christmas, my grandma, I don't think it was my grandma, I think my brother just told my grandma what to get me, was like Dig Your Own Hole by Chemical Brothers and Supergrass. But yeah, and then I guess younger than that, my neighbor when I was like 6 really got me into Elvis and then Nirvana. Mm-hmm. My sister like was obsessed with Alanis Morissette, which made me obsessed with Alanis Morissette. A lot of Public Enemy and Prince. Prince was like the biggest output of my household. He was everything, you know. My brother missed grunge because of Prince. And I saw Prince like 3 times.
That's cool.
I think. Yeah. Yeah, he's super
in
cool.
London.
I saw him at the O2 when he did those dates there on the first date. Spent all my tour wages on front row tickets for me and my girlfriend at the time. And he played Nothing Compares to You, and we were both just like crying. And then I saw him at a festival called Hop Farm, where he played for a long, long time, and it was really, really cool. And then I saw him at Coco was the last time I saw him, and I snuck in. I didn't have a ticket. And then we played Coco this year, actually. Attawalpa played Coco this year, and I was talking to the sound engineer there who worked with Prince for that show and was telling me that before he died, he wanted to do a residency of shows at Coco because it was his favourite London venue. And I could just imagine, like, just telling me all the cool people that would come and, like, play with him. And he loved that venue. He's so cool. But no, it's been a really cool experience, like, keeping these two worlds apart, but also allowing them to flow in and out. And at the end of the day, like we said, like, composing is just the sonic glue. Like, you've already got the feeling there. You've already got the top line, the lyrics. It's like what the actors are saying or what they're doing. And you're just sort of filling it in. And you don't want to overdo it. But like with a TV show, there's a lot more space for playing around. There's lots of fantasy, like fantasy scenes and stuff with her in her head. And yeah, it's been really, really fun. And like, it's just such a pleasure to work with such amazing people.
Yeah, I think that must be incredible to just see all, just very sharp thinkers, people that can hold their space so well.
Yeah, and also just building my team, which is basically my band now. And, we've got a harp player on this, and we're going to have a choir on like an episode. It's got like a cue. We do a version of Mozart's Requiem in D minor, where I got to write the lyrics in Latin, and it's quite rude, but kind of funny. Another kickback to my Latin teacher for taking my Pulp Fiction book.
You'll have to send him a Pulp Fiction script. Get his address.
He was cool. Andrew Reid, he was cool. He was actually really cool. But yeah, it's just fun making things, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're in a really exciting space, and it's potent. It feels potent, and it feels like you're only just forming this new incubator of whatever it is that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that,
which is a great place to be.
But yeah, I mean, I still look back at the stuff that we've put out, and there's a lot of throwbacks in the show to like old bands that I was in, and it's like you never really. I've never really, maybe you do, maybe other people do, give themselves moments to sort of sit and like look back and see what they've sort of done and where they are, and
and recognize their contribution to who you are. because I think everything we
Yeah.
do is part of us. It just may not
Yeah,
continue
little
on. Yeah.
pieces. Yeah, like the other day I was at my friend's 40th, and I was in a smoking section, and this guy, who I knew he was, sort of acknowledge. When you're at a party and like you see lots of people that you know, and there's someone there that you know, and you walk past them a lot, and you don't say hi, but they don't say hi. I acknowledged him, and I was like, out in the smoking section, it was very small, and I was like, "Hey, it's nice to see you. It's been a long time." He was like, "I have a bone that I've wanted to pick with you." And I was like, "Oh Jesus!" Like, he was like, "No." He was like, "No, no, no. It's a good thing." He was like, "You're the reason that I have my family." I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was like, you used to invite me to gigs every week. You text me. And I used to do that all the time. Like when I did, Young Turks nights or beyond, like any gig, I would text everyone in my address book. Even sometimes people would like, block me because I was so annoying. But this guy was like, yeah, you told me to come to the show, and it was like the third time you've asked me to come, and we weren't really friends, but we'd hang out. We'd basically be the last people at a party, just chatting breeze. He was like, well, I went and I met my, the mother of my two children there. We had twins after that night.
That night specifically.
Yeah. And then, yeah, that's happened before, but not twins, just a couple met at one of our shows, and I'm sure that shit happens all the time. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of a cool idea for a TV show.
Yeah. And you may not have ever known that if you hadn't spoken to him, and I think we don't know how your music affects people. And it's just this oscillating space of.
It's kind of endless, and that's cool. Like, I think anyone out there that's like contemplating making something, it's like, just do it. Like, the worst thing that can happen is like regretting not doing something. And like, Tom Waits would say that it's like the idea when you're in a studio, when you're, painting or recording, and this idea comes to your head, it's like he calls it catching lightning, and like, you can't hold it in a bottle for too long, and you don't want to let it out too quick. It's like it's a little art, and it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you've like caught that moment, even if it's like, a phone memo that later down the line you'll turn into something. It's like, I think so many of us just ignore those. Yeah, they're almost gifts.
It's a lovely thought.
I mean, I was always told as a kid that, not that you won't amount to nothing, but it was just generally like the feeling of like, you can't sing and you can't play guitar and write your music. Like, it's like there's an order to things. I started very late, and I was very dyslexic. I didn't finish school. That wasn't I didn't finish school because I was dyslexic. I wasn't good at it, and I decided to go to music college for a year, and I cheated to get in. You had to hand in these tests on a mini disc, and my friend did mine for me because I didn't know how to play those scales or those chords. And then I got in, and I spent a year sort of seeing what I didn't want to do. So it's very much like a school for session musicians, but in a way, session musicianing is like, it's different to what it was when the teachers that were telling you about it, the 80s. But yeah, that made me want to make music, and it was going against something. And then the music I made was going against the music that was happening in that moment. But I was like embraced, by people for doing something a little, for doing whatever I was doing. So yeah, it's all just about just trying to do it and getting obsessed with it.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, Lewis.
I enjoyed speaking with you too.
It's been nice. I want to ask you one more question, and then I'll let you enjoy your evening. What do you celebrate?
I'm not very good with birthdays, but I like other people's birthdays. A music release, Spotify will send you a thing and happy release day. It's like release day. Like releasing music is like, it's no longer mine, it's yours. It's like a terrifying day. It's not a happy celebratory day. It's like I got to the end of it. It's there, in this world where everything's like so quick. It's like we're talking about slow burning, like, a lot of people must just sit there like refreshing their computer, seeing how many plays they got. But I find it really hard to celebrate that. But I celebrate every day in the sense of like I am in the process of creation, and I'm also trying to celebrate finishing things. But obviously, like, when we finish that record, I could send you a document with some photos and a link, and you can hear the mastered record and see a couple of music videos of what I've done so far. But it's not finished. It's nothing's ever really finished, because then when it's not mine anymore and you get that happy release day email, it's like then you play these songs live and they evolve into this whole new thing. But like, yeah, I try to celebrate little moments, of like finishing things or starting things. I try to celebrate my wife every day. I try to celebrate what, the worlds we're building within our family and within our work worlds or creative worlds. But yeah, it's a great question, because it is something we sort of forget. What do you celebrate?
I celebrate my family and connection with people who like resonate on a soul level. And it might not even, I might only know that person for a week. And I'm really learning that you don't have to have everyone in your present orbit at that very moment in time, that there's this really beautiful connection. People are off living their own lives, and then you're living yours, and you can celebrate everyone as individuals in their own growth.
Yeah.
I celebrate nature, and that's really important for me, and the environment, and just being alive, I think, is quite phenomenal. When you think about, I don't have it in New York, but when I'm in Australia, I can look up at the stars and it's just wild. And it always reminds me of we're so insignificant, and but also part of something so incredible. It just kind of floors me a little bit. So I try and celebrate that perspective of like who I am and what I'm doing, and just being honest with myself about showing up.
I love that. It's a great answer. We didn't get into this, but just, the state of the world when you actually look at things is just so crazy. That saying of like two people can be right at the same time. But when you have two friends that are arguing, and they're like, but they did that to me, and the other one's like, oh, but they did that to me. It's like, what I say a lot to my friends when they come to me with this about someone that we all know, I'm like, look, I love you both. You can both be right. It's like, can't we just dissolve this bullshit?
Yeah,
and look up at the stars.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it just shows we can't understand everyone. And that's why I think when you're finding people to connect with and work with or collaborate with, it's not going to be everyone. Not everyone's going to like your music. Not everyone's going to like my work. No. But there are people that you can connect with.
Yeah, you find your people. But you'd think that all people would agree on the basis that, like, suffering is bad and helping people is good.
I agree.
It is complicated, but it's also I don't know, I just feel like kind of dehumanized by everything that we
Yeah,
see.
it's
It's
dehumanizing. Yeah.
crazy. Like in the 90s, do you remember the first time you saw like an advert for like starving kids in Africa?
Yeah, well, it was for
Like,
I don't know if it was UNICEF, but it was like
yeah, something like
yeah,
that, or
I can't think of the name. Oh, Oxfam or
Oxfam,
something.
or
Yeah.
yeah. And you're just like, I mean, my mum's a painter, really, really brilliant painter. And she made a painting of the woman in that advert with the way that she remembers it. And yeah, it was like shocking. But the most shocking thing is how sort of accustomed we got to that and how normalized that became in such a short amount of time. Like, I just don't want that to happen with everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep showing up and
Yeah,
build better communities that support your values.
that'd be a really okay start. Yeah.
I hope whatever you want from your next album eventuates or bubbles in the way that it needs to.
Yeah, I'd like to get to a good place to make a third
Yeah,
record,
cool.
it is a struggle doing everything yourself, and not just the paying for it all, but, organizing it. It's like a thing. Um, and yeah, if just that becomes a little bit easier or more streamlined, that'd be cool. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. The life of a DIY artist in 2024.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to We Are Art People. You can listen to full episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We are online at www.weareartpeople.com. Sign up to our newsletter for show updates and happenings, and please share with someone who may enjoy listening. See you next time.